Mara and Annette, if I were only brave and 11 years old, be brave enough to sing a solo. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Alaska Center for Spiritual Living. So great to see all of you here today. Thank you for coming out. I want to have a special welcome to those who are listening to a podcast, who are listening to a CD, or who may be watching us on YouTube. Welcome to you as well. I think we had 800 minutes of viewing on YouTube last month.
Wow.
So, yeah. For those of you that aren't here, I invite you that if you are ever in this area during the time we have a service, we'd love to have you attend, and we'll do our best to make you feel right at home. We got so many ways, you're bound to like one of them. I didn't find out we were going to have a skit until like a few minutes before 11. You know, I used to have a full head of hair before these skits started. The theme for the month of July is wholeness. And when I saw that last September or October when the 2018 themes came out, oh, that's going to be a great one. But I've been sitting with that and thinking, and this whole thing of idea of wholeness, and how am I going to put a series of talks together about wholeness? And the theme that kept coming into my mind as I meditated, contemplated wholeness was a theme that I had heard over and over, and I have taught this to at least 10 years of foundations class, and that is, there is nothing to heal, only wholeness to reveal. And I thought, well, I'm going to build something on that, so I started searching. Where did I come up with that? Where did that phrase come from? Nothing to heal, only wholeness revealed. I finally found it. And it was Dr. Robert Bitzer, who was a contemporary of Ernest Holmes and a founder of one of the large churches in Southern California. And in one of his classes, and one of the things that he taught, that was one of his favorite sayings and teachings. And what he said is, healing is the revealing of the wholeness already within. Again, healing is the revealing of the wholeness already within. And the two ideas that sort of came to me as I contemplated that was, one, this idea of physical healing, healing of the sick, physical healing. And the other was the idea that the seed is perfect, that the mighty oak comes from the tiny acorn, that tiny seed has all of that perfection already in it. So those are my two points that I'm going to talk about today. And I'd like to start off, I'll talk a little bit about my own journey with this idea of physical healing. That was a hard one for me, because when I was a little guy, I'm going to say it was about 5 or 6, I had a favorite TV program that my parents let me watch. I think it was The Lone Ranger. But after The Lone Ranger, there was a televangelist on the same channel, and I wasn't old enough to be allowed to change channels. They didn't have such a thing as a remote then. And I wasn't allowed to touch the TV. So this televangelist had come on, and he was a faith healer. And he'd have these congregants, these people come up, and they're in this big tent, and they'd come up and he'd say this big prayer over them, and he'd put his hands on them, and you are healed, and boy, they'd start shaking around, and all of a sudden they'd be healed. That is amazing. So I called my sister. She was, you know, the really smart one. I said, have you seen this thing? This guy can heal anybody. I says, Don, how gullible are you anyway? No, he isn't healing anybody. Watch this. See what really happens. So I start really watching this the next couple of weeks, and sure enough, this guy comes up, and he's got a walking thing, and he barely gets up there, and he can hardly stand. And we get the "you are healed" and putting on the hands, and boy, throw away your walker, and he throws away his walker, and he walks down the aisle like an Olympian. Oh, what an amazing thing. And I thought, wow, he sure really did get healed in a hurry, didn't he? And then the real giveaway, it was because the screen flashes on, and now donate so that Dr. Bob, or whatever his name was, Reverend Bob, can heal even more people. Here's the address on the bottom of your screen. Send your money to Dr. Bob so he can heal even more people. And I remember this, give till it hurts. Send us your money. And that one got me. And I said, I don't think Bob's healing anybody. This whole thing's a charade. All he wants is money. And I just last week read about this televangelist that needs a new jet. He already has like 2 jets. He wants another new jet so he can be anywhere in the world on this entire planet in 4 hours. And he's asking people to give till it hurts. And those two came colliding together in my brain. And I thought, this isn't it. This doesn't do it for me. So I got in practitioner training, made it through foundations and all the 6 classes you have to take to get through that. And I never really mentioned that part about, I didn't believe diddly about physical healing. But in practitioner training, I got there, and there was a thing that we read that really left a mark on me. And this came from the Living the Science of Mind. The belief that we do not have the ability to heal, which is what I had, that belief that we do not have the ability to heal arises out of the mistaken idea that our power does the healing, or that the intellect does the healing. All that the will and the intellect could do is to behold or watch the process. There is but one healer. This is the Spirit of truth. There is but one life principle. This is God in us. There is but one final law. This is the law of good. There is but one ultimate impulsion. This impulsion is love. And it dawned on me, yeah, this guy's a charlatan, but that does not mean that there are not laws, that there are not things that we can do that can actually affect and create a healing, a physical healing. People stepping away. There is remission of cancer. There is huge changes physically in this world. And they can come not through our power. The practitioner doesn't have any special powers, or the minister or anybody else. They put on their pants one leg at a time just like everybody. But there is a power in the universe. A magnificent, wonderful power in the universe. And we can align with it, and we can use it. And we can use that for physical healing. Yesterday I attended the centering prayer. And if you have not given yourself the gift of attending centering prayer, I would invite you to do so. It is a wonderful experience. The first and third Saturdays of each month, you can show up early at like 9:15 or something like that and have some gentle yoga, and then actual starts at 10. Have an hour of meditation and quiet. Some weeks they have the Lectio Divina, which was last week, and then other weeks they don't. But it's an hour of meditation and quiet, and then an hour of discussion. And you can attend either one or both, or you can do whatever you want to do. But it's a powerful experience, and I would encourage anyone to attend it. Well, yesterday they did have the Lectio Divina, and this was the reading that Bob had. Keep the Word of God alive in your mind, in your thoughts, and in your experience, and you will never know lack or limitation. Keep consciously before you the truth that no man on earth is your father. There is only one Father, the creative principle of all mankind, and you will never know anything but love from the men and women of this world. And I thought that just fit exactly with what I'm saying today. The title of the talk is The Power of the Soil. I'm going to talk about the parable of the sower. I know you think I'm on a Bible kick. I don't know why, but I've been Bible the last few weeks. But the parable of the sower is an extremely interesting parable. This appeared, first of all, in the Gospel of Mark, and then it was pretty much copied word for word by Matthew and Luke. And then it mysteriously appears again when the Nag Hammadi find, when we have it in the Gospel of Thomas as well, in the Gnostic Gospels. Cliff Notes' version of the parable of the sower is one day a sower went out into the field to sow his seeds, and he cast his seeds, and some of them fell on the road, and of course they couldn't grow there. The birds came down and ate them. And some of them fell into the rocky areas, and there wasn't very much soil there, so they grew real fast, but then when the sun came out and it got warm, they didn't last, and they shriveled and died. And then some of them got cast into where there was thorns and weeds, and the thorns and weeds outperformed them, crowded them out, and they couldn't grow in there. And then finally some of the seeds landed in the good soil. And they then some of them produced 30-fold. For each seed they made 30 more. Some of them did 60-fold, and some of them, in this good soil, produced 100-fold. Now, a little bit of research into that and looking at the 5 Gospels and what this group of 200 biblical scholars, these are 200 people that have devoted their entire lives to studying the Christian Gospels and determining whether or not Jesus actually said these things. According to these 200 scholars, that portion of the parable was awarded pink letters. That means that it is highly, highly likely that Jesus said this or something very, very similar to it. It's highly likely these were the words of Jesus of Nazareth. The only reason it didn't get a red letter, which is we absolutely know it, is because that there were a few scholars who noted that this parable was very, very similar to another parable that predated Jesus in this very agriculture-oriented economy, in this very agricultural-oriented society. And it was similar, very similar, and they thought that there was a chance that the author of Mark just grabbed it from that tradition and stuck it in because he thought it would be a good thing for Jesus to say. So, but they did concede that it's very, very likely that it's something that's said. So I think we can give a lot of credence to that part of that parable. But the parable continues. And in this, after Jesus told this, he left with the disciples, and they all, went into town or something. They went out into the woods, and the disciples said, "Boss, what's this all about? What does this mean?" And Jesus says, "You guys are supposed to be the practitioners. You're supposed to know what's going on. What do you mean? I got to explain it to you too?" And they said, "Yeah, we don't know what it is." He said, "Okay, here's the deal. These seeds is the word. This is the word that you're supposed to be out spreading. This is the word. And the various soils are the people. And some of the people are frankly kind of dumb, and they're not going to get it anyway, and Satan's going to come and take it, so it's wasted. And some of them, it's going to, I don't know if he said that exactly or not. It's like I always say, I don't know whether it happened this way or not, but that's not important. What's important is the story. And so some of them, fell into the kind of the rocky area, and they got all excited about it. They were all ahead. Oh, the word is great, and it's all wonderful. Let's really embrace that. But they didn't have a firm footing. They didn't have good roots, and they died off right away. And so they forgot about the word. And then there were those that got the word, but boy, they got all mixed up with other stuff, and they got all wrapped around other things. And like we learned from our Buddhist brothers and sisters, they got absorbed with material things. And we learned, from the Buddhists that suffering comes from attachment to material things. So they get attached to other things, and so they get crowded out, just like the seeds. So they got crowded out. But then some of the seeds fell on good soil. Those are on the people that really got it and understood. And so they left it and grew. They allowed it to grow. And that's what you're to do. the portion after that, everything in that parable, from the time that the disciples asked Jesus what to do, the scholars voted unanimously that that was not what Jesus said. The way that it was spoken, the way that the 3 points were used, those were all parts of a much longer oral tradition, and they felt that it is almost for certain that the author of Mark added that later. And I think that's important from the standpoint that if we look then at the Gospel of Thomas, it does not mention that portion at all. It never mentions the disciples talking to Jesus afterward and asking him what that parable meant. The key here is, yes, these are teachings, but they're parables. Parable comes from the word, based on parable, parallel. There are parallel meanings, and it applies to us, and this is why I like to use the parables. It's not for me to tell you what that means, because there are parallel meanings, and it's for you to figure it out yourself. It's for you to think about it, for you to come up with your meaning. You are challenged to see, what does that mean? What is the meaning behind the seeds falling in different ways? And I can share you a little bit about that, what I believe. And this gets back to this idea that within the seed of the tiny acorn, the mighty oak grows. That the seed contains perfection. The seed of perfection is within each and every one of us. The soil is going to respond. The soil is going to produce whatever is put into it. If we put in tomato seeds, we're going to get tomatoes, not potatoes. The soil will respond to what we put into it. But we have free will. And sometimes we don't plant our seeds into the perfection of soil, but into hard rocks or thorns and weeds. So the question is then, what seeds are you planting? And where are you casting them? I'm going to go back to the Joel Goldsmith quote. Keep the Word of God alive in your mind and in your thoughts and in your experience, and you will never know lack or limitation. If you focus on lack and limitation, that's what you're going to experience, because you're planting your seeds. And we talk about how attention goes where, or creation goes where attention flows. If we put our attention on lack and limitation, we're planting our seeds in lack and limitation. If we focus our attention on what might happen, the horrors that may come to be, then we're focusing on what it is we don't want. Keep consciously before you the truth that no man on earth is your father. There's only one Father, the creative principle of all mankind, and you will never know anything but love from the men and women of this world. If we focus on love, peace, joy, that's what we're going to experience. So my takeaway for today is, and we are getting there on time, aren't we? My takeaway for today is, be aware of your thoughts and be aware of where you're placing them. Be aware of that negative self-talk. And be aware of whether you are wasting that. Are you planting it in the good soil, or are you planting it out in the middle of the road? And so with that idea of within the seed is perfection in our minds, I ask my colleagues, the practitioners, to join me in holding our congregation in love and light. Knowing that as we go forth into this world, that the experiences that we have are the result of the seeds that we plant. So if we are experiencing lack and limitation, more month than there is paycheck, we just simply know the truth that within the seed that was within each and every one of us is an infinite universe, an abundant universe. And we open ourselves up to receive that infinite good. Speak my word for those who are experiencing health challenges. We just simply know that within each of us is a seed that is perfect. Perfect health in every way. That the cancer can fall into remission. Or the pain and the struggle from the cancer may lead to death, but it is the perfect death. It is the way that it is ordained to be. It has fallen into the good soil. We speak our word for those who are experiencing separation. Separation from God, separation from their fellow man. We simply know that the seed within each of us is a seed of love. And that love can come to total fruition in every relationship, whether it be romantic relationships, whether it be family relationships, work relationships. It is all God's love. And we just open up and allow God's love to grow in the good soil. The perfect seed of God's love growing in our soil. And so we just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God, the power and the presence of the perfect seeds within our lives. We give thanks for all that is. So we just release this word into a perfect soil that responds absolutely, that responds every time affirmatively. We release this word to the working of a law. We let it go, we let it be, and so it is.